Very good. Nice. So thanks for joining already. And today especially the guys like George Jacob from Pace. Don't know if you heard about them already. They're doing amazing work. Had some funded proposals in Fund 4 and Fund 5, when I'm right?
Just Fund 5.
Yeah, okay, let's say Fund 4 also. And Fund 3 and
yes.
Fund 2. Yes.
Fake news, fake news.
We work for IOG. We are IOG staff.
Nah, you work privately for Charles. Who cares about IOG? Then we have some amazing guys like Dan, Tyler, Stephen, who work in something what is called, I think, SecretDecks. Yes. So they are doing some really beautiful things as well. Maybe some of you want to say something about.
Tyler, do you want or should I? I should, right? Still muted. Hi.
Go for it.
Yeah, what we're doing is we're building a disco, or we're using the disco framework to create something like a self-organizing entity for artists and creative people. And within that, we pilot something that is like a brand, but we call it's the soul of the disco. It's called SecretDecks, and that's a Taro metaverse. And we've been working for the last 6 months, approximately, more or less, tracking our work through Discord, or tracking our work mainly through GitHub, and the interactions and intangible contributions, stuff like community care work. We track that through Discord with SourceCred. And now we're preparing to do a founders drop, a small drop of NFTs that we created to kickstart the metaverse, where a bit of money will probably roll in, where we can then test out our rewards structure or our rewards distribution. Until now, no one has got paid, but we tracked everything. And once funds come in, we will allocate everything according to the contribution surveys we documented on GitHub and the social currency that people got. In detail, first we're going to pay out the core contributors through what they documented in the contribution survey, so all the tangibles, and the intangibles we will, for now, we will distribute everything evenly. That is the remainder of what we gave to the core computers. Everything that is left, we will distribute evenly among all the people who accrued a certain amount of this social currency by engaging in Discord.
And then maybe for the people who can't read the chat, what can listeners or people who watch the video understand under disco? Do you build up a disco where people go to have party, or what does it mean?
Yeah, also, since there are no more discos, no, it's short for distributed cooperative, and it's builds, or it presents itself something like an evolution of the DAO framework, but with a heavier focus on community care work and rewarding people after they actually produced or gave input to something. And I can share the link of the manifesto. The guys from Guerrilla, I think it's called Guerrilla Media Mark, something like this. They started thinking about this a couple of years back and tried it out with their media collective. And once it grew to a certain size, I think there were about 25 people or something, yep. Then they started federating. So they said, okay, we have this basically design team of 4 or 5 people. They're going to form their own kind of disco, still carrying over the basic values we all agree upon, but tweaking the tracking and the rewards a little bit according to their field where they're working in design. And so after like 7 years, they had multiple of these small discos, all operating in a federated structure. And this is something that we would like to see happening within our SecretDecks metaverse, but it's also something that might be applicable to Catalyst. So we're looking into how we can, as soon as something is tested and we say, yeah, this works, here's our documentation, let's try it out in Swarm or wherever we want to.
And thanks a lot already. And I will just jump a little bit through some projects which are represented in the room here. And also maybe Jacob, George, can you maybe briefly introduce PACE?
Yes. So I guess what's relevant to the raw triangle that we're kind of looking at is identity is probably the first thing. So we have a proposal in Fund 6 with that's community credentials. And the idea there is we just want to kind of make the first kind of instance of using the core essentials of self-sovereign identity, which is DIDs and verifiable credentials. So let's say Swarm says, if you participate in a Swarm session, we're going to issue you a credential that you have to then prove that you've attended the Swarm session on this date. And then that could be some form of like proof of attendance. You could also similarly kind of use it as like a proof of like, you know, you could attend like a separate breakout room that goes, just come here and say hello, and we'll issue like a proof of human kind of thing. So it's like a very manual kind of KYC, just like, oh, this person obviously exists, I can see they exist. And then that kind of gives the tools to, let's say, Swarm or any other kind of community kind of project, whether it's Gimbal Labs, like this and that, to then start using that kind of process to start issuing credentials that then kind of lead to this next stuff, which is also reputation. So if you can build up, like, you know, I've attended 10 Swarm sessions and I can verify that on my Atala Prism wallet, then that's a form of that's a form of reputation. And it's, you know, it's the thoughts. Once you have the tool of how to make those credentials, then it's all about in your imagination of what things can we verify and issue that provide value to the community, that we can say, oh, they've completed this Catalyst school course and they were really helpful for this. And so this is how we can start to take ownership of some forms of reputation. And I think it really leads nicely into what you're talking about, SecretDecks kind of stuff, is we're kind of manually tracking our time, me and Jacob, with an hourly kind of like, we assess our skill levels and then say, this is our hourly rate. And then we just record time for the stuff we're working on at pace. When we finish the proposals, we just say, okay, I did this percentage of this proposal and you did this percentage, and we got this funding. So we just distribute it, boom, like that. So there's kind of next level to this kind of identity set when you have this kind of base of like, how can we then start to attach things like these contributions and stuff? So I haven't really thought too much about that next step, but this is something that I think is a really good overlap with the SecretDecks and what Tyler and Dan are thinking about. So getting all that kind of together so you can have some form of reputation, and then these contributions and tracking them in a way that you can verify and you own, builds up that really kind of beautiful base that the raw triangle is all about.
Yeah.
And maybe also when we come, for example, to tracking, then we have also Stephen Wittenstein from QA-DAO, which brings also, I think, a very important part to this puzzle.
Yeah, I mean, my proposal is distributed auditability, and I'm working in collaboration with SecretDecks and with Swarm, which I might intend to use as a pilot if I'm funded, to introduce continuous integration tools, which is more like infrastructure based. So basically, it's to automate reporting, essentially, and it's basically to support what everyone else is doing, George, but to introduce more GitHub actions, more taking information from each repository and reusing it, that kind of thing. As well as some other projects I'm involved in, but in terms of what we're doing here, I suppose that's the most relevant in terms of reputation and reward systems, because that would provide an infrastructure potentially for tokenization going forward.
And then maybe also last point, because then I didn't got Lisa and Anna and Lucas in today. Was too short by the time to get them in, because you are highly involved also with Space of Urgency, Stadt nach 8 and Freiträume. Maybe you can speak a little bit about what they are doing as well.
So they are looking into onboarding their different communities that are very diverse, from the queer Black people of color, indigenous communities all around the world oppressed from oppressed regimes, like in Georgia, for example. And what they're looking into is bringing these communities to Catalyst and Cardano in general, in order for them to become self-organizing, self-reliant, and self-governed. But they don't know anything about blockchain. So the first thing is to really have educational workshops, or at least one educational workshop that is highly targeted for newcomers from the sector. So this is currently what we're doing. We're brainstorming topics and ideas for this workshop with them. And then the next thing would be to show them how to create wallets, because to prepare them for the Atala digital identity, but also that is a bit tangential to what we do in SecretDecks, to give them an ability to have an identity similar to what you said, George, that is purely based on peer reputation and peer review, that is not tied to any governmental or centralized institution, and still make them like real persons in the digital age, even when they maybe don't have a passport because they fled their country, or because their country wants to throw them into prison for being gay, or all this stuff. And so what we're looking into is kind of anonymous identity, where you can have like a pseudonym, but still have real reputation data that is peer reviewed by other people, attributed to it, so that you're more or less independent from oppressive regimes and so on. And yeah.
One thing to space of urgency, maybe they come in and they don't have any knowledge about blockchain, but they come in and they bring knowledge what we don't have. They are already in culture, in artists, in freak whatnot, since I think a bunch of time already.
Yeah, so, since a long time. I mean, they go back to Spiral Tribe, if anyone knows this. So they very close with them also, and all the squatting projects in the UK and in Amsterdam. So they go way, way, way back with all these communities. Yeah.
So really, I think also back to where blockchain found its beginning, cypherpunk and everything, which was born in these movements, in these cultures. And Space of Urgency, as I know and as I have learned about them, they are quite involved group of people, community, which have been there since the very beginning with a bunch of experience and very, very valuable knowledge, experience, how global communities, structures, cultures can look like.
Yeah.
Where are the pain points? What have to be considered? Where should the structure be careful for whatnot? This is something what we don't have in our system, for example. And then, yeah, check up.
I just have a question regarding SecretDecks and Space of Urgency and the overlap there. So you, Dan, you said that you are going to create this metaverse, and it's also aimed at targeting artists and creative thinkers, etc. So is the goal there to somehow integrate these people also from Freiträume and Space of Urgency into this metaverse kind of?
Oh, definitely. I mean, Heather is actually, she's a friend of a friend who's been working since the beginning with me on SecretDecks. He's our front-end dev, and he connected me with her, and she is actually involved with the Freiträume Space of Urgency guys, and she brought them to the table after she saw what we are doing in SecretDecks. And so definitely this is an idea to offer creatives or these communities spaces in virtual reality or in the metaverse to claim and to call them their own and to express themselves there, at least as an alternative to the spaces that are being eradicated now. That's definitely something. I mean, at first it will be tarot focused, but obviously we want to have this as kind of a adaptable blueprint for other communities to just take and run with it, and then create metaverses within their own topics or their own ideas, belief systems, whatever.
Yeah. And now we see already some beautiful puzzle pieces coming together, because also why this room today exists. Cardano is growing, the community is growing, and we still lack structures. And so I had a call with some of you already checking out and thinking, okay, hey, how should this look like? What should happen? And yes, and to follow the spirit of Project Catalyst, to provide a safe and lively environment to explore the highest potential of human collaboration. I know this by heart already. Damn it, I can't hear it enough, but well, yes, it's about collaboration. And all these projects walking already in the same directions. And when we see, okay, we don't even have to call it a DAO, because when we speak about reputation, rewarding, and onboarding, these are already the essential bricks for a DAO. So, but not focusing on directly a DAO, much more on saying, okay, which are the Lego bricks, the building bricks, which are required to move in this direction and to coordinate efforts and engagements, can bring us a lot ahead. But then the problem is, yeah, okay, so how can we do this? And there's also something beautiful, because now we have the Catalyst Circle. And in the Catalyst Circle, one part was already that the representatives of the Catalyst Circle went to their community and asked for the main problems the community is facing, the groups are facing. And there we have reputation, rewarding, and onboarding. So this means also that the Catalyst Circle has a certain responsibility to support or act in this direction. And there was one example, for example, also for funding. So community said, yeah, we need faster fundings. So Catalyst Circle's initiative was to build up a challenge team, which submitted a rapid funding challenge mechanism. Tyler is part of it as well. Thanks for your work there. And so we see already something what is quite beautiful, that there can be an endorsement or support from Catalyst Circle for projects which really work on extremely required and pressure topics and themes. So one idea, for example, what I would love to present is to say all these projects, what we have just right now in this room here, come together, say, okay, Catalyst Circle, you said these are the community told you, these are the problems. Well, you guys, you are working already on the solution of the problems. And how can Catalyst Circle support you? So like a booster behind a little bit, what do you need? Is there support? What can come from Catalyst Circle, for example? And also to have a look, for example, as one extreme important value of Swarm is to act like an incubator. What we had, for example, with the Catalyst School, which was born in the Swarm. And as it established and became stable enough, they moved out and created their own project. Exactly the same repeated with the Eastern Town Hall. So we see that the Swarm is really a nice place where projects and people find together, share their interests and their projects. And when it matches, they establish own huge projects out of this. So taking all these pieces together, we have these problems. You guys working already on the solutions. Catalyst Circle can be there and support you. Swarm will support as well. And to say, okay, create a common project as a collaboration, have a certain alignment, say, okay, where does the journey leads to, and create our own project, community, whatnot, all of this. And yes, that's where I stop, where I end my monologue. Sorry for the time. Thanks a lot for listening, and stage is yours.
I don't mind jumping a little bit. One of the things I think could be super valuable in terms of like collaboration and this kind of shared thing is, like, for instance, I'm fully open for the community credential stuff. The knowledge that's attained there and developed is useful for everyone. So whether I help to split that work with other kind of groups, that's what they're doing with SecretDecks and Dan, and we work with each other on that proposal, and then we help each other and they take some of the funding from it. That could make sense. I also think it could make sense to kind of separate the bit where we're talking about how to attach people's time and all these contributions and stuff as like a packaged thing, like mechanisms to do that. For instance, what's holding me and Jacob back, and anyone else who joins potentially in the future from like doing a DAO, is we need to have some sort of kind of way to kind of do this in a way that's more kind of autonomous. So if there's like this kind of generic kind of package that kind of helps to facilitate that kind of thing, it can be used in many different kind of use cases. So it needs a lot of thought, and what should and shouldn't be on chain and stuff. Because at the moment, I'll just use a centralized kind of like time tracking thing. I don't know what the best kind of approach is for how to put that on chain, or in a way that it's going to be more easy verifiable and you build it up over time. But there's lots of things that, like if someone's just focusing on that problem, and like I'd happy to try and contribute into that as well. Then like again, everyone collaborates on solving that problem really well, just like having the right tooling for community credentials, and those two as base structures for some of this other stuff. So whether it's reputation, because these kind of things also really affect a lot of things. So we've got this kind of reputation side. We've also got on the onboarding thing. For instance, I'm actually looking at this now. I want to get this GitBooks kind of solution past the door. So we need to have this kind of like micro governance kind of approach. So this also kind of requires this kind of reputation and kind of like credentials thing, because we just want to have like a better way than using like an email verified doodle or something like that to kind of say that, oh, they picked this option for governance, because we don't, let's assume that we're not going through the funding process for these kind of tool changes. So these same systems of credentials and the kind of, the work you do into it could be used for catalyst system changes with these micro governance things. So improving the onboarding stuff, improving all of that. So yeah, I guess that would be my starting thoughts on the importance of those kind of two sections and how they could potentially help a lot of subsequent things. Hopefully that made sense.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. Stephen, Tyler, and I, we were also thinking about this, why, how, and when to put decisions onto the blockchain. And Stephen mentioned the automation through GitHub, and it would be possible, but ideally we would need maybe some development help for that. But it would be possible to have the voting done in Discord with a poll, where only members who hold a certain token can access the poll and actually vote. Once this voting is closed, there will be the GitHub action listening to the result, copying it into an issue, and then requesting approval reviews from the peers that actually participated in the review, respectively one more outside that didn't participate, or some kind of extra approval from someone that is more or less independent from the vote. And then once this is approved, the result will be minted as an NFT and stored on the public wallet from the cooperative. And then everyone would have each voting trackable and viewable on chain. And it could be automated, except for the approval of the result minting.
I just have a quick question on that. Is that something that would be kind of created as like a Discord bot that other people could use as well? So it could be replicated across numerous servers, or is that kind of something that you all are just testing in one Discord to start?
We would test it in one Discord to start. That was just that's a draft that we have. We are not operating like this currently. We have to set up the GitHub automation first, and we have to use the Cardano Connect and the Nami wallet. Tyler and me, we talked 2 days ago about using it like this. Currently, we do polls and voting with the Discord, with the Discord roles. So depending on your role, you have more weight. Of course, it would be more secure and better if we could do it with the Cardano Connect and the Nami wallet and the governance tokens. But potentially, when we have the GitHub actions ready, we would only need the bot that listens to the polls and sends it to GitHub.
Well, just quickly, I mean, the two SecretDecks proposals, if they get funded in November, would provide for a pilot or implementation of our SourceCred implementation. We're ready to go on SourceCred, Aidan, in terms of how to record, as you say, in a specific Discord server or a Discord channel. And also we could possibly do that. We could also do that with GitHub pull requests and things like that. So there needs to be some work done in the winter, I suppose, the last quarter of this year, to work out how that would work. And then only later would continuous integration come into that. And then that could be used in automation, could be applied in various contexts, depending on this. So first of all, you need to work out the solution, how you're going to vote, how that's going to be configured, and then you can automate it once you've sorted that out. So that's the kind of work process. Sorry, Jakob, you got your hand up.
Yeah, very interesting the procedure that you described there, Dan, and how you could do it. So as far as I understood, when you described it, it sounded a lot like governance, right? So making a decision, which is like, for example, if you create a DAO, which could cover like this governance mechanism. But when you said, what you now just said, Stephen, sounded like that it could be also used for maybe rewarding distribution, that there could be voted on, for example, and then also be minted as an NFT. Have you thought about this mechanism as a way for the rewarding stuff as well, or more in the governance direction? Because as George mentioned, you can separate kind of these discussions between governance, creating a DAO, a reward system, and of course the onboarding as well, which is kind of a different story, right?
I think it makes sense for, I think like Dan and Tyler, you're working much more on the mechanics of the reward system. And then so it makes sense to kind of divide this up a little bit. So people who are just working on reward systems and reputation systems, and then when I come along, it will be to take that and to automate it, more. But then again, it's also going to be awareness of what each of us are working on, so we don't duplicate our effort, I suppose, and we learn from each other. Sorry, Felix. Tyler.
I think one important thing, also to give it a good start, is not to say that it's about to create an overall system. I think this would require too much effort, and maybe also too much that several groups have to leave their, let's say, their zone on which they are focusing. Much more to say that we have maybe focused on building bricks, Lego bricks, which can be used in many different ways later. So they are adaptable, but because when we say, okay, we build a DAO, then we take focus on creating this whole system, everything ties together. And this is an extremely long run, I think. Instead, maybe starting to say, okay, what are the most important parts? So reputation, rewarding, onboarding, everybody focus on, okay, how does this single brick needs to look like? And that there is like a tool set or like a set of bricks, and other projects, other communities can simply take the bricks and rebuild their own system by provided bricks. So you don't have to focus on a system to build a system. You don't need, for example, when you build a house of stones, it's the stones who count. And you can rush down your house, you still have the stones, and you can build a new structure with the stones. So exactly the same in this regard. I think. Maybe it's a nice approach. I don't know what you think about, but Taylor, yeah.
Yeah, no, I agree with you completely with that, Felix, as far as building little parts of something of a DAO that you can plug into any other DAO down the road and test these little parts individually, iteratively. What I was going to also touch on was that with the token design, the NFT that builds reputation within, like in our instance, SecretDecks, for testing this whole process. If we can get that right, what happens is I could build reputation in SecretDecks, and if SecretDecks builds reputation within the entire Cardano Catalyst community, then that reputation is something that I have in my wallet, and I can move from SecretDecks to other organizations. If other organizations recognize SecretDecks as having value, then that token in my wallet also has value, and that might help me move throughout the community, the overall community, more fluidly than I would right now. Because right now everyone's just kind of like, you get to roll in Discord server, and you go to another Discord server, and it's like there's no no continuity between each Discord server, other than, like, I mean, Swarm there is, but yeah. So it starts with like a concentrated reputation system within one kind of Discord server, but when you put that on chain, then that reputation can actually expand, and if it's adopted by other different organizations, then it can kind of just spread. Yep, that's it.
Yeah, Robert was asking if it's like a stake proof for voters, because I shared the screenshot. It looks a little bit like it it's kind of, actually, yeah, it's kind of a stake proof, because you vote with the amount of governance tokens you have, and you have more governance tokens if you have more candy. And ideally, so what we do is we track the voting that has been done with the governance token, and we add it to, or we allocate it to reputation. So let's say this guy or this person voted for outcome A, and outcome A resulted in this and this and that. And if there are a lot of positive impacts from outcome A, this will be added to the reputation data, so that over a longer period of a couple of months, we can build a kind of reputation matrix for each member, where you can see where are the strengths and weaknesses, or where people have more sense making or voting skills or knowledge to vote on what topics. And then we can say, okay, this voting has a specific topic, so the member can basically get more governance token because he has a better reputation. And this reputation is just an NFT that is held by the individual, and it's like an basic idea, but only that it just tracks the internal reputation of SecretDecks, being mindful about the Atala DID scheme and structure, and then later able to export it to other projects that have the same scheme. So yeah, it's a bit like a stake proof for voting, but only that you cannot buy the stakes, but you can just earn them by contributing.
What so for this Discord thing, is the idea is this is like initially obviously it's a Web 2 solution, you're using it for the voting kind of part, and then you're kind of extending it by using this kind of bot functionality. Is the idea you're kind of extending that and using the bot to then interact with web, more Web 3, more blockchain parts of the system? Is the idea you're going to want to move away from Discord in in the next kind of thing? Like, what's the kind of thoughts on that? Like, so it could be quite hard to work with Discord directly with anything. It'd have to be via the bots and then via externally. What's the kind of thought process for then and ongoing?
So we like to keep it modularized, and as Felix mentioned, build the blocks. So for now, we will keep the Discord and try to see if we can set up the web page as a front end, also for people who are not very familiar with GitHub. So you can just log into the web interface, and then you also have access to specific chat rooms in Discord, respectively the Discord bots, and you have a nice interface where you can write page or edit content in GitHub and do pull requests without going into GitHub. And yes, the idea is then to have it all on this Web 3.0 interface, only the most important and vital parts on chain, like the identity and credentials, reputation, and the other things running on like AWS or whatever.
I'm very interested in, so I don't have a specific raw project, except maybe the Catalyst proposal API, maybe that counts, but maybe not. But LidoNation .com, we have aspiration of becoming a DAO that encourages and rewards lots of different activities around creating educational content and education on the site. So things like reputation as tied to NFTs, being able to pay out rewards and that follows you, or being able to recognize ecosystem did issuers are all very, very, very important milestones that my winter project is basically being able to have some basic version of that. So I love the conversation about building blocks. And I'm a backend system cloud person by day. And I would be very interested in contributing in some of those efforts, especially if I'm able to link to it with the Web3 stuff. Like I've onboarded all the people in my staking pools, and to this day, one person understands Daedalus. No one of them is willing to engage with Discord, and only one person knows what a GitHub is, right? So my entire constituent is entirely, you click a thing on a website and it does something. So that, like, I definitely would like to contribute on the development side of some of those building blocks as different teams and ideas solidify.
Yeah, I'd love to see the kind of comparisons of the decisions that you compared Discord to, like whatever the options you were for kind of starting this. So this is really kind of like, it sounds like more of like your internal attempt to start your kind of process of making a DAO, and it'd be good to understand this kind of, and just the governance side of it, how what you kind of have on those kind of comparisons, due to some of the reasons obviously Darlington was mentioned with, like, there's many people who don't use Discord and stuff, so it's kind of like they have to go into that ecosystem. So there's a decision there, of course.
I mean, Darlington, can you post some links to your proposals, the Leader Nation ones and all that?
But I guess as even as you're building the Discord thing too, maybe just thinking about keeping abstraction in mind, right? So if we hit a milestone, what can be abstracted away from that?
Yeah, maybe like the Discord Docker for the websites or something. Or
yes,
I don't know, and something like an iframe for Discord, or just or a whole new challenge setting for governance UX.
Yeah, it's tough. I guess, like, actually learning how to use all the Web3 wallets, learning how to vote, going through different systems. I've interacted with like Polkadot with different other blockchains, and they're all like this. They all run into the same problem, where it's like if they get to a point where they actually have like an on-chain reputation voting system, and it actually works, no one actually uses it because it's too hard to actually use it. The user experience is tough, so it's just you have like a handful of Web3 core people that are using it, but they're having trouble actually building their community. So UX for governance is kind of huge, and if we can crack that sort of problem, make it easier to just onboard people into a system that works in an intuitive way, that would be a huge problem to solve.
I mean, the biggest motivator, as always with people, is games or money, but money is not such a nice motivator than gaming. So I think we should look at how can we motivate, or the collecting, like this collector spirit. How can we really create the demand for people to want to be in a specific community. That's why I also want to create this tarot community, because I think if you get a good community running, then this is like everything else follows suit.
Maybe the Aiden can add something.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, at least on the gaming side, I definitely find gaming to be kind of people are looking to have fun. Like we're all using these amazing blockchain tools to do amazing things and empower people financially and give identity to those that don't have it. But I think something that is definitely worth keeping in mind is how do we make experiences fun and enjoyable? In large in part, how I see that happening, in especially in these Discord environments, is enabling social transacting. So what I mean by that is I think something really valuable would be is when we're talking about using Discord and connecting it with Nami to authenticate that a person owns an NFT and whatnot. I think it'd be really cool to also enable Discord to become the transacting environment of tokens. So, for example, I know there are wallets out there like Tip CC and CC Tip. Those are actually two different companies. And there's a few other Discord-based bots that are entirely acting as wallets. All of them are centralized at the current moment that I've found. There hasn't been one where you connect your own wallet to it. But I think the development of some sort of of bot on Discord that enables me to do a command like, send Felix 25, ADA, or send Felix, X NFT. I think that would create a nice social environment, and that would enable for something like governance to occur a bit easier, as it removes the friction in terms of needing to send each other wallet addresses. Instead, you're basically sending money as easily as, typing out a text message.
And maybe, Aiden, you can say a little bit about your background with Playerment a little bit.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. So I'm helping to build Playerment, which is in essence kind of like a play to earn layer, blockchain integration layer that, we integrate into existing video games. So basically what we're trying to do is create a way for gamers to get paid to play video games based off of their gameplay performance. And that gameplay performance coming from existing titles like, Fortnite, Call of Duty, Rocket League, Splitgate, stuff like that. And then with that token, those users can then go out and mint NFTs and then trade them all through the currency they earn via gameplay performance. So one thing that we've actually looked at is once we develop out that platform I just spoke about on a website environment, we actually are looking to integrate that with things like Discord and Twitch, because then what starts to happen is everyone has this currency they're earning through an activity they like doing. And now when you start integrating that with social environments, that's where you can kind of really see a lot of beauty where, hey, now I'm a Twitch streamer and I mint an NFT on live stream, and then people are bidding it via, literally writing commands in my Twitch stream chat. In just signing the transactions with their wallet. So that's a little background on me. And that's kind of, I guess, what I'm super interested in is as we're going out and developing these Discord and Twitch bots in the future, things like that reputation system are really helpful. I think, the roles on Discord is a great first step. And using the Nami wallet to give people roles is a great first step. But yeah, I do think that things like the governance-based voting in accordance with what role you have or how many NFTs you have or ADA and whatnot is super important and very valuable.
And also with Playerment, I think Playerment, you have been the very first proposal in Catalyst in directly leaning into gaming, which have been voted and funded. Then also Ada Quest joined.
Yeah.
And now also Ada Quest Playerment, they joined together, submitted also a challenge for gamers on chain for a challenge proposal. So to have our own challenge for gamers to attract them into the ecosystem. Because I think definitely that just what you speak about, that the education on the very beginning, it's a conversation on the edge. Because yes, to educate all the stuff to the user, at least this will be the biggest problem, I think. And for sure, the first solutions, they won't be easy. They won't be perfect. They will, like everything in Catalyst, a dirty start, evolve over iterations. But the most important thing is to start. And I think definitely that with gaming, there is an extremely attractive and low barrier entry point for users to join in and to have this, like you said in the channel, governance UX. So
what we thought at SecretDecks was to make it more attractive for people. That's also why we use SourceCred, because there you can accrue something like a currency that represents value without having any wallet. So the idea was to bring people in and have them engage in Discord a lot and see, oh, I have this social currency that could be valuable, so and so, but I need to create a wallet for this. So this threshold needs to, like, this point needs to be passed so that someone creates a wallet actually. And yeah, that's one way you could do it, to really force people to just have this activation potential to say, okay, I want to create the wallet because I see the value in it. Otherwise, yeah.
Absolutely. Have you perchance, just because on the note of social currency and social tokens, I'm not sure if you've heard of a Ethereum-based project called Roll, but they're kind of pursuing, I'd recommend checking them out. They're kind of pursuing the goal of basically equipping people that are generating communities and whatnot, trying to equip them through the usage of a fungible token. And then essentially Roll's purpose being, they help them mint this fungible token, create some sort of policy to it, and then provide infrastructure to it in the form of like a wallet that supports it, getting them listed on Uniswap, things like that. So just in terms of how you can go about provide, I mean, I guess you all are kind of in the building stage, but it might be nice to check them out because you can kind of get a sense for how that tool can then be implemented to a variety of people. So then, everyone can kind of go out and mint their own solutions as to how they can create, high functioning communities involved in the blockchain that have, cool governance principles and stuff like that.
Yeah. How do they spell?
It's ROLL. Yeah, I can grab the link and I can send it into the chat. But I guess the
Colony, they're doing something similar, but Roll I never heard of. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, the most popular project out of it was something called Whale. And Whale was basically trying to create like an NFT DAO in the sense where it's like, basic. Yeah,
but don't say NFT though when Dan and Steven are in
oh.
and Tyler, they will be triggered directly. Yeah, to everybody who watched this video, there's a project in Catalyst, NFT though. Vote against them. Thanks.
There's actually a video that says vote against them.
No, I just say to everyone who watched the video.
It was just a Felix subtitle.
Yes.
But Felix is totally unbiased.
Yes. Felix, you should change your name on Zoom to "Don't vote for NFT DAO."
Yeah. Okay, I will do this next town hall. I ask everyone to do so. So
yeah, do it.
It's a statement.
Next time you're hosting the actual Catalyst town halls. Yeah, I'm sure that would go over really well.
Too funny.
All right, but I'll grab that website and send it out.
Yeah, please.
Those proposals are proof that some people are voting based on proposal titles. I see it over and over. It's really frustrating.
But Tyler,
yeah,
absolutely. You have your hands raised.
Felix. Nice.
That was Felix. I just forgot to put it down last time.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so but
I already put a link down. Is it the correct one, Aiden?
Looks like it.
Oh, sorry, I was muted. That's the correct link. It's tryroll.com.
By the way, we ran into the problems when creating a cooperative, what kind of legal structure entity to use. And there is this thing called Autoco on Ethereum, running on Ethereum. I don't know if you heard of it. which is basically you can create a LLC as easy as you can mint an NFT.
Wow.
But it runs on Ethereum. And then you have basically a liability wrapper. So that it would be awesome if anyone could recreate this on Cardano, so we wouldn't have to use liability wrappers on Ethereum. Yeah, just a side note, or if anyone else has an idea what kind of legal structure to use as a cooperative in Europe, please do let me know.
Jacob is quite strong in this regard, and I think he knows some stuff. Yeah, you do.
Hält sich in Grenzen.
No, yeah, you do. You're smart, right? But yeah.
Yeah, shoot, Jakob.
No, I mean, I still have to figure it out for myself, which kind of organizational form to choose. I mean, George, you're still here in the call, right? You already spoke to a tax lawyer, and I spoke to him as well. But yeah, he just first advised me upon all of these staking reward stuff, and now we have to schedule some meetings for creating a better organizational structure for me working in these different projects like Swarm and Pace, etc. But this is always, I would say, it's a bit dependent in which country you're in, right? So, I mean, I'm based in Germany, and for example, I mean, Dan, I think you as well, right?
Yeah.
And yeah, the problem is, of course, with all of the cryptocurrency regulations that are not entirely clear. And so in Europe, I think the whole MiCA will be now rolled out over a course of the beginning of the next year, as far as I heard. And it looks actually pretty bad. And I'm not sure how that will influence organizational structures as well. But for private people, it doesn't really look good. As far as I understood it so far, it won't be, for example, viable to hold privately secret wallets anymore. So it has to be more public. And I even heard today in a podcast by a person that had contact with somebody who's involved in the whole MiCA regulation that could be even be used as a how do you say plan for the US as well. So they were looking also very much at it. So I can just recommend you guys to look at these regulations to see a bit what is coming and what will be developed. But there is so far there's not the word DAO. And for example, German legislation, we don't even have the word Bitcoin or staking so far. We just have some recommendations, for example, in Germany by the BMF, which are just preliminary. So everything is recommendations, no final clarity. And in Germany, it is handled individually by each Finanzamt, so each finance local institute. So, for example, just to make a quick case, if you don't know if your staking reward, for example, will be treated as tax-free after 1 year or 10 years, depends upon the Finanzamt. Because originally the regulation was used from container shipments for leasing, container leasing. And the question is if that's applicable. And yeah, so what I was recommended is to treat everything in the worst form, right? Because I mean, because most of, or probably the Finanzamt is going to treat it that way. And what that means, for example, if you're creating a DAO, is that you have to look at the regulations regarding all of the transactions, and then the question is if you want to engage in that as an individual, or create a company, for example, for it that does part of it. I mean, that you can always do and then pay out yourself afterwards. But if you do it in Germany, or if you do it abroad, like in LLC or something, I'm not so far in that domain.
Dan, I mean, and Tyler, we were looking at a kind of more transitional, looking more at, say, cooperative models, weren't we, rather than go straight to a DAO.
Yeah, because in the cooperative model, you can go the route of the Stiftung and Verein associations, where you can don't have a profit that you have to pay taxes on, but that you put all the profits into reinvesting into the association. And this would also mean that you could have pro bono work paid out through the organization, and the only tax event would be when persons actually get the money from the organization, but not, for example, if let's say an NFT sale is made and there's the fraction of the transaction going to the organization, because it's not processed as income, but as an reinvestment directly into the purpose of the company. And this works if you set it up as a purpose company, basically as a GmbH, where you have a bit of adapted, what's it called, charter, where you state the purpose, and that everything that you do has to be measured against this purpose, or has to somehow lead towards this purpose. And you have a 1% veto golden share that is held by the Purpose Stiftung, so the Purpose Association, that is just watching over that you don't sell the company to someone that is doing something different than the required purpose or the purpose that you communicated before setting it up. So this is kind of a workaround how to do it, and not calling it a DAO, but calling it a cooperative, and using these kinds of different open source and community structures to lay out the entity. But yeah, it's a work in progress.
Just to give a little short break here, this is exactly the reason why I tried to avoid to name it DAO and everything, because now we come quite fast in very deep water, and we're jumping right into thousands of rabbit holes right now, where I think for the beginning it's really extremely important and effective to focus on building blocks, because building blocks don't request anything in regard to this or that or everything, and to move step by step ahead. To say already right now to focus on DAO and structure and legacy and everything, then I think we will still sitting here maybe in half a year, still everybody working on his projects.
Yeah, but it's super important. Otherwise, you will not have an entity holding the domain. It will always be one person holding the domains. You will not have cooperative wallets that can be held under name. You cannot sign contracts as one cooperative, and it's something that is definitely needed very early on. Otherwise, you're super restricted in what you can do and how you can interact with the legacy world. Yeah,
I mean, I would suggest. I agree. I sort of hear where you're coming from, Felix, but I would suggest that this is an important subject we need to discuss early on. I think the emphasis should be on more an open source and cooperative approach as we're starting from community solutions before we move on to more financial like DAOs in the future. And I think maybe but discuss it here now probably maybe be too much of a distraction. but maybe some sort of working party we should set up to concentrate on this straight away, because this question keeps coming up. It doesn't go away. Well, yeah, obviously for good reason. And for Dan pointed out the good reason, because we need to work out how to define these entities. Personally, I think they should be cooperative entities, they should be community entities, and open source organizations to begin with. And that's what we should focus on. That's my view. But perhaps we should form a group or a channel, maybe even, to discuss that further.
Yeah, so I agree that we should. I agree with both Dan and Felix that we need to have a way to interact with the legacy world. We need to protect the liability of individual actors within these decentralized organizations. And I think there should be a way to approach that in a way where you're building out different modules with these different Legos. There could be one Lego that any sort of decentralized organization uses to move funds from crypto world to the legacy world. Maybe that's a Lego that's that just exists somehow. There's a Lego to build reputation. There's a Lego to vote based off reputation. So I mean, I guess the approach I would take is identify all these individual problems that you run into with trying to build a DAO, solve those individual problems modularly. And I think what Felix is saying, he wants to avoid calling it a DAO, because as soon as you call it a DAO, then you kind of you give a definition to something that you kind of don't want to give a definition to, because as soon as you define it as a DAO, then it itself becomes something that's kind of responsible and accountable. So how do you create an accountability Lego? I don't know.
The golden Lego.
The golden Lego, like an accountability Lego that everybody, like different actors, can move in and out of.
Or just a ramp that you pass around, you know, like an NFT that everyone has access to, but the one that holds it can use the ramp or something. I don't know.
And then possibly, like, while they use it, they have liability at that point, but as soon as they stop using it, then that liability is removed. And but there's a record of what happened, so retroactively something needs to happen, that person or that entity that used the Lego at that time.
Exactly, and that way you could distribute the liability, or you could catch the liability from everyone through like one liability entity. And everyone like contributes a fraction to paying the entity.
Yeah,
but they don't use it all the time.
That's kind of like what Autoco does with the Series LLC, I believe, where they have like a master LLC, which allows, and it's like a contract that's with a master LLC, and every time someone creates a LLC within Autoco, it just creates another LLC that lives underneath that master LLC. And I don't understand, like probably maybe Quasar might know a little bit more about that, but he's around. But I know that it's kind of works on Ethereum, but as soon as you actually want to interact with what you do on Autoco, it's like you got to pay all this gas just to do anything on it. It's kind of annoying.
Go on, Steve.
I've grown into being a part of the Gimbal Labs team, and we have spent hours and hours per week talking about this for months now, you know, because there are these things that are really hard to figure out, and you know, on the social aspect, I think Randall has come closest to presenting, you know, ideas that were accessible for everybody. And he focused mostly on these co-op models that you referred to. I don't know the names of them, you know, like I don't get really nerdy about reading all this stuff. But you know, kind of the way Gimbal Labs, you know, because it was paralyzing, you know, to the actual building of the products that Gimbal Labs wants to do. And so we kind of have taken the approach that, you know, because we're doing tech products and tools and stuff like that. And the way that we're thinking about it more is, you know, we've got a group and we've got developers working, you know, with that group, and we're building a model that basically the functions of it are determined by the smart contracts of the actual apps, right? And that can kind of be isolated in the sense that, you know, the function of it is basically a DAO. You know, I mean, when you get into a decentralized and autonomous, you know, like you know, and it's not easy. And I'm not saying that it's easy. And I'm certainly not the dev that's going to solve this, you know, in terms of like how it actually works on chain. But in terms of everybody receiving fair value, you know, for the work that they put into a project, you know, you can kind of build that into the transaction, you know, what happens with the transaction, you know, and the money generated from a smart contract, you know, and that everybody gets their fair share, including the larger organization. But then we're kind of looking at it like as people come in, you know, and we're getting people from all around the world popping in and wanting to get involved with Gimbal Labs. Then what we're thinking is that there can be this kind of evolution in groups, so that it's not subgroups in that one group is underneath another group, but it literally is like dandelion seeds, you know, going around and just planting a new, you know, new groups sprout and kind of connect to one another as side chains and parallel chains, or however you want to say that on a technical level. The biggest problem is, you know, how do you be open and not lose control of your group? And I don't know how it is for y'all, but I mean, to me, it seems like we've all found one another, right? And these people in this community, these are the people we want to work with. And that's kind of like, for me, the social aspect of these groups, these working groups and these organizations that are developing. That seems to me to be the best way forward. You know, you can be open and permissionless because it's an open and permissionless protocol, but you don't have to work with people you don't like, you know. So don't, you know. And then, you know, so like your group's only growing when you've got people that you really like and that are really resonating with you. And to me, that seems like the least complicated way to deal with the social aspect, you know, of how people interact and what their role is and all of that. You know, you can, you know, if you're just limiting, and I don't think it's limiting, you know, I think it's very expansive. But if you limit yourself to the people that resonate with you, you know, you're going to find consensus. And even if you don't find consensus, you'll recognize, you know, because of your resonance, you know, maybe I don't know enough, or I don't have enough of an argument, or everybody else thinks this is, you know, you have to trust the wisdom of the people that you're resonating with, you know, and like I do that with tech shit, you know. These guys say IPFS is, you know, it's okay, but it's not persistent, so we don't want to use it. Okay, I'll agree with that. You know, I have no reason to argue that point, you know, on the technical level. And that's the thing where I think that this DAO, you know, and this is what NFT DAO did, you know, catchwords, catchwords, catchwords. We're going to create synergy with catchwords, 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 and they don't say anything, and then you get some asshole taking over, or just flat out controlling it. And we can avoid that just by being more emotionally intelligent and you know, aware of ourselves in the space, and not working with people who don't get it or are really coming at it from a, you know, old school way of doing business. But I think the technical aspects can be reduced down to the smart contracts, and you can resolve, you know, compensation and all those issues just by carefully thinking about your DApps and how you write out the code. I apologize for my dogs.
Chachi.
Was that a good finish with the dog's taken over now? Or in case you wanted to say anything else, all good. Yeah, I think this is a I'm just kind of saying overview stuff, but this is a kind of a common problem I think we're all facing. Even Gimbal Labs more specifically because there's more people. For me and Jacob, it's a lot simpler in many ways. There's only two of us. But like this kind of transition, we all kind of need to kind of use this kind of like standard, you know, having an entity or some cooperative or something kind of, you know, legal safety net at the moment. And then when we have the right blocks, some of these can move across. And it's just, you know, what complexity does your organization require? The simpler ones may only need a few blocks that they can actually, like, if I said that we were a DAO at the moment, what me and Jacob are doing with everything in pace, it would just be a straight up lie, and you can get yourself and wade yourself into some trouble doing that. Just like, you know, one person might have all the control and it's not really autonomous, it doesn't really have like any of the attributes of what a DAO should be to kind of like defend yourself. So I think it's just going to be this ongoing and short-term, hopefully, set of problems that we all face of just trying to decide what is the best way to short-term structure ourselves before we have these blocks, so you can create the structure that you need so that it's safe enough. And it comes down to these same concerns I think Steve was mentioning. It's like, if that isn't done right as well, then, you know, it could also be, if you've got enough people in there, it could be abused by someone in some way because you've not thought about something. You know, like, you know, someone can take more funds or this or that. If you haven't actually thought about that in a way that, you know, how it's going to work, because it's not simple at all, then you just run the risk of completely ruining that organization very, very quickly. So it's a lot of short-term decision making and a short-term annoying solutions to the problem. But I think it is going to say it's kind of building blocks kind of approach, and then this kind of self-reflection of what do we need to get to the point where it works for us for a certain degree, and then moving on from that. So yeah, that's all I've really had to say on the matter. But it's just a bit of a shit show at the moment with having to solve legal problems in the short term and then move over to this, how do we actually govern this in a way that, you know, at the moment I'm kind of, it looks like it's going to be easy for me to just take the hit on a tax situation and then distribute to whoever's working, like Darlington's partnering with me and I send money to Darlington. That looks like it's the easiest thing in the short term, but obviously it's trust on me. So it's absolutely not ideal. I don't want that, especially if there's more funding coming. I don't want to be like this, like, you know, $200,000 or whatever sitting around, and like, you know, if something happens to me, then it's just going to trap all this or that. So yeah, the summary of it is any kind of tools that I can help to build and common problems. I think we all in the same boat here. It's working out what things are essential so we can get to that next step where we can say, like, any new project that comes into this with its little small nucleus is like, you don't need to go for the shit that we did. We've got the core things, and you can start with that. And as it gets more complex, by the time you get there, we've probably solved it for ourselves. So I think hopefully in the next 3 to 6 months, we might have a few answers to that based on, you know, lessons from Ethereum, because Ethereum's got plenty of things to do with DAOs that we can kind of learn from. A few of different projects that I can't remember on top of my head, but there's a few cooperative based things in Ethereum. There was a really good one I saw that has got interesting things and dynamics, but there's a lot of kind of examples there for us to learn off. And then if that problem's solved, then you start to really kind of solve some of this, bringing in the compensation things that maybe SecretDecks is doing. You really have a strong base for just being like, that's no longer a problem for us. We can focus on building. But that's what I'd say for the thing. It's just very summary stuff, but here to help. Because it definitely helped me.
Quasar, I think you were there before me, right? But okay, so maybe.
I don't know, but go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, I think so. A lot of the conversation right now is kind of meta. So, right, we are all in different jurisdictions. There is not the golden path so far, but I think it boils down to two things, right? The one thing is that the trust issue, right? I mean, when it comes to reward distribution itself, but also like holding the initial coins. For example, when Catalyst funds are distributed, there right now, as of right now, there's just like one wallet that holds the coins that then going to distribute them, right? And maybe I hope that will change over time when we have smart contracts that can be automated. And then the other component is, right, that we kind of each figure out how we can in this international setting, decrease our tax spendings and reduce the burden of administrative work, right? So, and this is the other component, and that component is always very, very much reliant upon the jurisdictions. And I mean, I think we can kind of exploit some loopholes. Okay, this is now on YouTube, but because it's international, but still, if we act as individuals, right, we are still liable in the jurisdiction that we currently live in, right? And I mean, even Americans are liable if they are living abroad for the actions they do with their businesses, right? So, so I hope that the first component will get better right now after smart contracts and multi-sig wallets, etc. That if somebody dies who gets the coins, they are not lost, or trust issues happen. And then the other one, I think we have to find localized solutions that we then share. And I think therefore it would be really cool if we have, you also mentioned again the GitBook, for example, George, right? That we have these kind of pools where people talk about different solutions in different jurisdictions, and also more in collaboration with tax lawyers. I mean, that never can be, how do you say, perfect recommendations, right? I mean, we all are not financial advisors, but still it's a good starting point. And then people can even go to their local tax lawyers with the stuff they've learned. So, and I think there it would be great if we, with the experiences we make, we write it all down and then kind of centralize. I mean, centralizing is not such a good word, but put it on a place where everybody can kind of find it and learn from it.
Yeah, it'd be good to collate some of that information, and I know that the work that George is doing on collating information around GitBooks is going to be valuable going forward on that as well. So yeah, there isn't a solution straight away. There are some interim solutions that some of us may get to before others, and we should share them when we get to them, and that's going to be the key.
Fraser, are you done unpacking, or I'll let someone else go? He's probably still unpacking shopping.
So with, I'll just keep using Gimbal Labs because that's the example I know the best. So like they formed an LLC because they had already had, they started kind of early on getting inquiries from traditional businesses in the United States. So they formed this LLC on behalf of those customers, right? And so that LLC then is going to have its tax issues, right? Just to stay legal and above board for themselves as well as for their customers. But then they've got their own group of apps, their own sets of tools that they're doing as independent developers. And that's kind of what I was talking about. There's this possibility, to work it this way, and obviously everybody's got different ways that they're approaching creating utility and creating value for themselves. So, but like if you're putting out, an DApp just out in the world, free for everybody to download, You know, that's much like the Cardano protocol. You know, then that payment that goes to the people who are included in the smart contract, you know, when that transaction is paid for, right? And the developers are actually wrote that code, they get their share of that from the transaction fee, you know, and then that's placing the burden back on the individual, you know, and that's kind of why I like the way, you know, we've been talking about that, is because as individuals who are part of a group that supports, you know, this group that also is an LLC in some respects, but in other respects, it's a decentralized group and everybody's working because they want to. You know, it's kind of an at-will contract labor thing. The remuneration comes from the smart contract itself. And that's kind of, at that point, that's kind of outside of the LLC's thing, right? The LLC is not doing that as their business as an LLC. And the responsibility to pay that tax in whatever jurisdiction these individuals live on lies on the individuals, right? They have to represent themselves to the government, and it's not the LLC's responsibility to do that. And to me, this is kind of like, if you're a group of developers and you just want to put out apps, it doesn't really matter where you are or whether or not you're an LLC or whatever. If you've got income, you report it to your government, you know, and you do what you do. But that's not your group's responsibility. That's your responsibility as an individual. And I kind of like keeping it that way, you know, but I don't know, you know, like there's endless exceptions to how that thinking goes. And I can kind of understand that not working for some people, depending on what kind of things they're working on. It just depends on what kind of clients you're having, or if you just, the world is your client.
Go on, Tyler.
Okay, yeah. Yeah, so I guess I was gonna kind of like go back to how we started this whole thing, and we're talking about reputation, like rewards or compensation mechanism, onboarding into the actual community, Cardano, Catalyst, Swarm, and those are kind of like all essential problems that we need to solve right away. Like the legal problems are important, and I mean, like right now, I think we're all kind of gambling a little bit. Like we're kind of in, nothing's really defined, and we're like, I think we're doing something that's okay. We're not going to get in trouble. Yeah, let's pray. Right. So that's going to be a hard problem to solve, because that's something like we don't really know, because like you said earlier, a lot of the regulation in lots of different countries. I think maybe that's Jacob actually said that, but it's gray. Nothing's really well defined, and every single place in the world, they'll have different sorts of regulations and interpretations of how they want to treat crypto organizations. So, I mean, some things that we could start working on with Catalyst right now are the ones we're working on right now that this group kind of got pulled together for. And then like another easy one, obvious one, is like a multi-sig wallet. That's super important. Gnosis, like something like Gnosis Safe, something where it's just like a transparent place where treasury funds can be managed for individual groups that get rewarded through Catalyst. And there could be oversight with that. I mean, I think just to start, if we could have the reputation system, social DID, like a social validation DID that was mentioned earlier, where it's like a peer-to-peer validation to kind of like build an identity, reputation on top of that, and a reward mechanism with a multi-sig wallet with treasury management, something like Gnosis Safe on Ethereum, then that would be enough to kind of have, like, it's just a good place where, like, as you come into Catalyst, there's a system for you to kind of come together, create your organization of people, and you can start working. Actually figuring out the legal entity to apply to that, I mean, we could use what's out there in your particular jurisdictions, but I don't think we can solve that problem right now. Yeah. So who's doing the multi-sig wallet? Anyone?
Quasar, of course.
Quasar or George going to speak next?
I will. I'm available.
Go on, Quasar.
Hi. Let's see. There was a lot to comment on there. I'll be quick. We're worried about governance or regulatory issues setting up corporations, but we can't get people to use a web browser wallet. I think we're worrying about some things that we don't necessarily need to worry about, which other people have already mentioned. If there is regulatory issues that we're looking to, protect ourselves against, there are options. We can create a risk pool to protect people. There are insurance policies that will pay for regulatory infringements, damages, so to speak. So there's options there. I don't think we need to let anything really slow us down at this point, especially not conversations on governance and taxes. We do need to be mindful, but it's a wide open, wild west. And I think that's about all that I had to say.
Yeah, I'd agree with that a lot. It's a very personal problem, really. It's just like, everyone's got their own jurisdiction, so it's just a problem we all have. That's just like, it's transitory. It's just like we're trying to move from A to B, and we all just have this like, it's on the mind. For me, it's now, but that's my main income, so it's like it's important for me to get right. I don't want to fuck it up, but also I want to, say fuck off to a limited company because I don't really want to work on that. That's not how it goes.
Is IOG issuing tax documents or anything like that with the funds? No, then fuck them all.
In the Catalyst coordinators chat, I brought this up in the first onboarding thing I had from Fund 5 was I was actually asking, is there any kind of, anyone's already had someone in the UK looked at this and they've, what's the kind of stance on this? And they hadn't had anything collated for this kind of thing. So I said, okay, fine, I'm going to go and look at it, and then I'll come back and share what I find at least. And we're close to getting towards that. But on IOG side, they've just kind of left that into the ether of, whoever solves that problem for themselves, great. But there is some value in doing, I'm going to try and provide some of that value back, but there needs to be some sort of aggregation just to kind of speed that process up for whilst it still exists and we don't have all the perfect DAO infrastructure. So it's weak at best at the moment. This is the summary of that.
I'm getting back to Tyler's point and perhaps Felix's point about what can we do at the moment without worrying about these financial issues going forward. And that's onboarding, reputation systems, and non-financial rewards. Okay. So by non-financial rewards, I mean things like NFTs, that kind of stuff, which maybe are more symbolic or don't cash out. So, but certainly there are things we need to work at right now, and I think SecretDecks is looking at, for example, issues around onboarding, aren't you, Dan, with how to turn people coming into a Discord server into kind of a voting public, if you like. What to do with that, how to take that forward, how to work with reputation systems with that. And all that doesn't need to have us thinking about DAOs and all that legal stuff, which we're not going to resolve here. And it's a kind of, we're just going to get back to that situation where, okay, let's wait until we find out what the situation is. So if we can return to the things that we can solve, then I think that might be better.
Yeah. That's what I was raised my hand for. I think that some of the main things that is straight back from the beginning thing, the community credentials and this kind of credential side is a really good starting point for this reputation, I think. And that's something I'm interested in. I have a proposed for, but I'm also interested in sharing and working with anyone on that if they want to get involved with that kind of thing. I think what the SecretDecks and all this kind of intangible, that kind of stuff is another Lego block that I think is worthwhile. This governance thing is interesting as well. So for instance, I've done the GitBook for the Catalyst, and that's really to help with onboarding. But for me to get that across the line, I think I've messaged Danny, for instance, but it's it's not really up to Danny per se, but it's IHK are really kind of the custodians of the process, but I need to have some sort of governance process, which I've mentioned to Felix in the chat. It's just I have to get us across the line. I need to have the endorsement from all the communities, so some democratic system. So similar to what they've been mentioning on the Discord chat, on this idea for voting and stuff, I also am, looking at how can I just be okay, let's have some, yes, no vote on this is a suggestion, this is the democratic decision. I'd like Project Catalyst, the ecosystem, to have a base level of resources using GitBook, and I need to kind of think of what that process is. Realistically, in Web 2, with some kind of thought process to, what's kind of the next step for like a Tala Prism, for instance. Let's say I use a Web 2 kind of Google form, and then people just verify their email address is like the step one for us doing that kind of like simple governance process. But in the future, maybe it's you have to, if to vote on the Catalyst, kind of these, Catalyst ecosystem changes, you have to have attended a Swarm session, just prove that you're a human, just so we know that, you've been issued a credential, and then we verify that, and then they use that as their way to, do the democratic voting, and that's just like the evolution of that. So I think whether it's this looking at this Discord thing, or what I'm maybe suggesting with some sort of, simple reputation thing to then help with this micro kind of like sub community of the Catalyst ecosystem itself, the governance of that, that's a really good Lego block. Like, how can we kind of, make a streamlined process for like, okay, we want to make these change. Here's a proposal. It's just to change this tooling or a process. The community that can will vote. Boom, done. Boom, done. It's just like, it's very easy to kind of follow. So
I know something. I know something. I've been talking directly with George on this, and I'd like to bring it out more into the open, and that's the issue of authoritative sources of documentation. Okay, like there's people in the community like George, myself, and others who like the landing page maybe who've done a lot of work on documenting stuff over the past few months. Which is we need to sort of like step that up a level, really. So to sort of say what parts of this documentation are reliable and trusted, okay, and what parts of it are open source and portable as well. That's the other thing. So, and then that needs to be, we need to try, we as like everyone here as a kind of community need to sort of like try and say, okay, can we endorse that and say these people are capable, they can be trusted, okay? And then that can be sort of presented or sponsored maybe by the Cardano Foundation or IOG or Town Hall or whatever. And we can take it all up to another level, maybe. Sorry, Felix has got his hand up.
Exactly, and there I think that for me is a very clear guideline already, because for me the ideal situation would be that you don't have to do more work than you have to do already, because you have to do a bunch of stuff already. When a collaboration means that it adds more responsibility and more work to everyone's shoulder, it won't be sustainable. So the main goal should be that you guys have the possibility to simply go on what you do already, and that the environment in which you act is safe. And this is the promise from Catalyst, to provide a safe and lively environment to explore the highest potential of human collaboration. Highest potential of human collaboration is what you guys are just starting now. Then we have Catalyst, who says, okay, their goal is to explore safe and lively environment. And now we have the Catalyst Circle. And it's not the Cardano Foundation Circle or the Immorgo Circle, it's the Catalyst Circle. So it's directly linked to Catalyst. So said this means already when there is a solution like just what you are doing already just by coming together, then it's a responsibility of the Catalyst Circle to say, hey, those guys need to be supported. Where do they need support? Okay, they are confronted with legal issues. They're confronted with this. What does Catalyst Circle has to do maybe in this job to support you in this? So to build an environment around you in which you work and can grow and explore. So said this, for me, it makes quite easy sense to say that there's an agreement between you, just SecretDecks, pace, space of urgency, whatnot, a common agreement. You give this to the representative, he presents it in the Catalyst Circle, says, okay, we have the problems of don't have rewarding reputation onboarding structures. They guys working on this, they need help. We need to do something for them, to support them. And there we go. And there are the people from IOG and from Cardano Foundation. And they are ready to help. And when it's addressed, and also to bring the Catalyst Circle a little bit to the next step as well, because until now, there was never a petition raised by the community. So that community-led efforts come and say, hey, Catalyst Circle, we need this, we want this, whatnot. So also to allow them to move a little bit forward. How does the circle react to an initiative like you are building up right now?
This ties in very well with the democratic voting from the community as well, because there's one thing to suggest things to the Catalyst circle, but at the end of the day, they shouldn't be making massive decisions anyway. If there's this process of like one person can just be like, here's an idea, and here's this options, people vote for it, and then you're bringing this kind of finalized kind of vote, something that people have voted on, to the Catalyst circle. It's like, how do we? This is the result. How do we action that? And then it's just kind of like, you can present problems or like voted on kind of like solutions. It's like, oh, people want this to happen, and there's lots of different ways things can filter into the Catalyst circle.
I mean, that brings us on to a massive subject, which is having in place in the next few months some kind of better voting system than the previous one. And not just for Catalyst Circle, I think just to generally use for community efforts. Let's say, George, if we wanted to vote on how trustworthy is our documentation, for example, or how authoritative is our documentation. I'm not saying we would vote on that, but that might be an example. Okay, we need some sort of transition from Google Docs, a Google voting doc, to something a bit more the next level on from there a little bit. That will be a good next step, and I think Circle could do with that as well.
Yeah, I as for instance, for the thing I'm suggesting with the GitBooks as the base layer for like Project Catalyst resources, and then other things that can filter off it, whether it's videos or something like that for education. I see, just like there's a Catalyst circle, I see there's going to be sub-circles for each part of the ecosystem because they all have importance. So there could literally be one just for like the calendar and the events and the dates of everything, and it could be 2 people. And that's like a circle, and we trust in those 2 circles. We elect them, and the voting kind of system will be like, oh, we elect these 2 people, or in whatever kind of manners. There's loads of ways to do it, but you could elect them. It could be compensated, uncompensated. Like there's lots of different ways to think about. But same with this education stuff, I'd imagine in the first instance, it could be one of 2 things. It could be like IOHK has full control because they're custodians of Catalyst voting this and that. They're kind of making the documentation at the moment. If they want to maintain control, they can, but they could also include the community. And so it's like half IOG, half community, and then it's like this nucleus of, let's say, 6 people, and they're the trusted, delegates to fulfill that role of maintaining the education resources. Because let's say Marek's working on Catalyst, if something changes there, he has to update the documentation there, and it's just kind of like you're adding the process and the trusted kind of delegates to you're making a sub governance process for these specific things. I think that's how this, which is mentioned before, how this is likely going to scale, and it's applying the right tools to those individual kind of situations.
Like having the Catalyst circle for documentation. Yeah, sorry, Tyler.
Yeah. Sorry, I interrupted.
Yeah, I was thinking. So we've talked a lot about individual reputation. Like we need to build our individual reputation within a system, and that kind of helps us interact with the system in a like a more powerful way, or just like a more influential way, right? As you build your reputation. But are we doing anything to actually measure the reputation of an organization? Like what is Swarm's reputation within the Cardano ecosystem? What is Cardano's reputation within the greater cryptocurrency ecosystem? What is the reputation of cryptocurrency within the world? But if you go down, right now we have these different organizations. You have just Catalyst itself, but within Catalyst you have Swarm, you have SecretDecks, we have Catalyst Circle, we have QA-DAO, we have all these different organizations. How do we, within each of those organizations, as individuals building reputation within those organizations themselves, if we have a way to kind of quantify the reputation of organizations that are kind of coming together organically, then we also have a way to quantify the reputation of one individual within that organization in relation to the greater Cardano ecosystem. So how do you make a graph of all of that and just do it?
Yeah, how to start? How to start?
So what's the first step? I need someone. We need a Scrum Master, product manager.
I feel like it's one of those problems that's like the individual comes first, and then this kind of group kind of thing comes second. And I think the instant kind of use case I'm thinking for this is like, if that reputation, there's individual reputation, but the group reputation can be really useful in the Catalyst process. It's like, of these proposals, what's their kind of background trust? but then there's very obvious concerns of how that, you know, how that system can be gamified. So like the complexity of that and the importance of getting it right is so high. I imagine that, yeah, I think it doesn't sound like a problem, a very valid problem to solve, but also a problem that would probably, at least for, you know, from initial thought process, further down the line after kind of the individual thing, I guess.
Yeah,
So I don't know what your thoughts are.
If we do get it right, then that doesn't, you don't have to have a I guess like you have these organic points of authority in that sense that validate your reputation, right? Because do you see what I'm saying? Because like right now, like your ID is based off of like the state gives you your credential, right? That's like, that's who I am. Or but if these organizations build reputation within Cardano Catalyst and they have reputation, they become a point of authority that says Veritas, oh yeah, Tyler works in SecretDecks. He has high reputation in SecretDecks, and because SecretDecks has a high reputation within Catalyst, therefore Tyler has good reputation throughout the entire ecosystem. So it becomes kind of like an authoritative credential itself.
I think very beautiful point, Tyler. I think it's like mutually reinforcing, right? So, I mean, if individuals do great stuff and they come together in collectives, this will be represented in there. And then if this collective then decides, for example, to validate or to verify credentials, for example, and if that organization, that collective has reputation, that is then being transferred again onto the individuals that reinforce the reputation of the organization. And of course, that only works if, I mean, if the institution or the collective is reliable. And I mean, I think right now we are seeing the first starting points of that in Catalyst, right? So we have kind of proxies for it. So of course, we can say, yeah, we have following base on, for example, social media or Discord channels and activities, right? Or ongoing formats where people engage. That could be one indicator. But of course, the reporting mechanisms of Catalyst itself and being funded and the votes, right? And then doing that over time is also kind of a reputation, right? Because you can see if the project's actually delivered, and then you can see, okay, which people were behind it. And so that speaks both for the collective itself as well as for the individuals. And then I think it will be the natural step for these collectives to use that reputation that they've gained through Catalyst, etc., to hand it out again to individuals that are in favor of the developments that are taking place. And hopefully it can be then used for onboarding as well, and for recruiting and pushing individuals that go into a good direction in the Catalyst direction, probably. And yeah, so I think it makes sense. We see the starting point of it. And the question is how we can naturally kind of evolve it. And I don't know, as a analytics guy or more from the controlling perspective, it would be great if we have kind of KPIs or something like that, right? That are more universal, so that we can really see, okay, we had Fund 5, right? And then we have the different KPIs. I mean, right now we are not there, that we have these KPIs. I mean, we have these cohort reports, which if you look at it, at the end of the day, it's just like a signed check mark. And even great projects, I think, for example, I think it was TC Sparks, etc. They didn't do their check marks, although they are delivering good stuff. So maybe we have to come up with the future funding rounds. And there, I think Stephen is also very needed to come up with good measurements that are proxies for these delivering, that then can be used as a reputation for these different projects, which can be also helpful for the individuals as well. And so I think we have to think step by step what is needed from these projects, that we really have kind of good indicators for their reputation, And then in the next steps, try to think more on how they can be used. And the good question is, do these indicators then have predictive validity? So are they correlated if we measure them, for example, from fund 4, 5, 6, to predict the outcomes of fund 7, 8, 9, right? So the better we make these predictors or these criteria, the higher they should correlate with future success. And so it is really important to think closely about it.
And from my perspective, again, coming back, because I think a key point there is really this, also to start to really bring community-led initiatives like this one, really to link this very close to the Catalyst Circle. Because just one thing already, the Catalyst Circle, so we have this people who represent the groups. I consider each one of you as part of tool makers and maintainers. So I feel responsibility as well to represent the problems and initiatives and everything. And the problems which has been sensed was already rewarding and onboarding structures. And the Catalyst Circle actually focus very much on working on this problem statements, which came up from the community. So from my perspective, we are working together. A representative is only able to represent. That he is able to represent something, others have to present something. So said this is, for example, the next Catalyst Circle meeting will be next Thursday. And I would love to sit there and say, okay, we have these problems with rebooting, reputation, and onboarding. And there are projects who work already there. And they had 1-2 meetings, let's say one today, one in next after town hall, for example. They are working already on the solutions. Now they start to coordinate. And here are their names, and they need support. Well, what do I need to tell them? What do I have to push for you guys? That would be the thing what I would love to offer to your initiative, to this collaboration.
One obvious thing, and I would say this to George as well, is if we in funded cohort, and I mean Jakob as well here, can start to think about how we're using the funded reporting data, okay, as well, going forward in terms of strategically, you know, fitting into how to ascertain who has reputation or not. Not to rush to any judgment, but to start to build up the basis for that. That's one thing. And then there's things outside of funded cohort as well.
I think from my perspective is, I don't know, Stephen, you have a better view on this. The automation part is very, very important, at least for us, for the contribution survey, because this is quite tedious and people already are working a lot. And if they have to do this contribution survey really thoroughly, it's another at least 1.5 hours or 2 hours per month. Even if you have everything noted down and listed, if you don't have everything noted down and listed and you need to go look for it, then it's maybe even a bit more time. And if this could be automated, the whole contribution process would be much, much more attractive and much easier to handle. So I don't know, Stephen, would it be helpful if we could get maybe, I don't know, I don't even know if it's possible to get help specifically for the GitHub automation, for like Docker creation, or
if we can call out for people who are experienced with the back end with continuous integration with GitHub Actions, fine, that'd be great. Those are the kind of people you need for that. But then again, there's also the kind of knowing how to apply that as well. So it's a kind of it's an unusual set of things coming together, you know. So I mean, I think there's a quicker, in terms of answering Felix's question, I think there's, in terms of what SecretDecks is doing and what others could be doing, is like onboarding. Okay. Because I know that SecretDecks you're working on this. I know I'm not contributing as much as I could be there, but that is something which could be expanded out to other partners in the community and then taken to Circle. In my view, Dan, is that aspect possible?
Yeah, I mean, we're not doing anything particularly special when you look at the other crypto communities or Cardano crypto communities on Discord. It's just a basic, but it's basically just a bot asking you to perform certain actions, waiting for the input. And this is a kind of a first layer that verifies, does this person actually aligns with the values that we have in the community? Because this is the basic gateway of creating a community, that you have people that agree on a specific value set.
I think things may not be innovative in themselves, but they become innovative when you collaborate with other people. So, for example, let's say Tivo's work or Quasar's work on administering the Catalyst server or the Swarm server. You know, it's about broadening this out a little bit, maybe. So let's say, as going back to what Felix was saying, if Felix can go back to Circle and say, I have these people working on onboarding, and these people may include, say, you, SecretDecks, they may include Quasar, they may include Tivo, working together on something, you know, for example. It's not that individual, you know, as I say, that's where the innovation comes in, because I think together you're going to maybe, you know, then there'll be some cross-fertilization there.
Georgie.
I was talking about my hand was raised for a previous thing. Now it's nullified by where the conversation's led. But to your message in chat, yes, go nuts, go nuts. Raw is a great name. I don't want to, you know, blast the horn on it too much. But in the next day or so, I hopefully we'll be wrapped up. I'm looking at different kind of polling solutions and voting and tallying, all these kind of different things on Web 2. And I'm trying to think of what makes sense, because I don't want it to be like easily game, like anyone can just multiply put things in, just as like a V1 for how I can gain feedback on. I'd like GitBook to be the authoritative tool that either IRHK or IRHK and the community use to maintain like the base set of resources. That's kind of the change proposal. I can present that probably by Wednesday, so we could talk about that maybe on Wednesday, like that process that I've suggested, and I'll probably by that time, hopefully, can start sending out, be like, can you sign this? Which answer, yes or no? Give your feedback if you want to add it as it be one of that, and then that's something that we can, you know, push forward to the Circle as something that's very actionable, and get feedback from ROG and develop that. Because if we have that one system of just being able to make change, like this is a problem, you know, here's the reasons, resources, vote, boom, Circle, boom, yeah, Circle. Yeah, it'd be really good.
I can partner and with that as well, George. So I could to verify that is there's other people in the community that have verified that that's the right solution to go with, if you like, you know. So and then so you, when you go to Circle Felix, you can say it's not just, you know, there's other people in the community as well who have looked at this, because we have looked at this, George, haven't we, from many different angles over months, you know, and Dan actually as well with SecretDecks, and even before that with NFT-DAO actually. So where we've gone through this process of seeing what works best, you know. And so George, if George needs that support and that authorization and that backing, he should get it. You know, no, yeah. So that's one plank of something to take to Circle. Yeah.
we'd love to have that V1 of the process, just so it's there and people use it, and then people are going to say, oh, this is a problem with that, and then eventually we have a tile of prism, and then like anything, it's something we have, it's done, and then it can progress as time goes on, which would be fantastic, because we've all got loads of different things that we decide this needs to be changed, and then if we can maybe part of the policy is we do it could be one thing gets done a week, where it's like, this is the key thing that's being voted on this week, or maybe that's something to consider, because maybe 10 come in at once and it becomes overwhelming. We'll see. But if we have it, then at least we can start iterating and be like, this works, and then it's just a way that it's really this glue between Catalyst Circle does, this glue between IOG and the community, where a lot of things kind of cross over, and we need them to be like, that's kind of that problem to solve. How can we make sure that we've got this system that IOG can input into, the community can, and we're making change, but all in agreement. It's democratic. Whoop-de-woo, huzzah, next steps, speed, yada yada yada.
But also it's about communicating why this solution is the right solution. It's the right solution because it's open source. It's the right solution because the back end is an open source repository that's portable. It's the right, so these kind of things. This is what really need to get that across, because otherwise people will say, well, why are we using these tools? Okay. And we're using these tools because they're not proprietary tools, for example, that anyone can use them, and so that needs, I would say to Felix, that needs to be put across the circle as well. And we, as George, I suppose we need to, you need to put that across at town halls as well, that kind of message. So that's what I'd say on that.
Because this is definitely, I think, one point where we need to think also about that. Okay, we have more and more proposals coming in, competition gets more and more, let's say, radical. It becomes more and more difficult to get funded as well. So also to say, because you guys, what you are doing, you're not doing since a week. Like you said, Stephen, it's been a month already you are working on this. And also to say that you are working on crucial projects for the community, not for your projects. It's for the community, it's for the environment in which you operate and function. To say also, how can projects like this be supported and boosted? Like, for example, what we have with this challenge team, that setting up a team and very open, yes, support, endorse them, boost them as hell, because they work on an important solution and implementation. So for you, exactly the same. So also to say, okay, that there is this endorsement from the Catalyst Circle. And also to say, okay, it's a merged effort, it's a collaboration of several projects. Says also to support you also in regard of, okay, having a little bit less competition, because it's officially stated from the circle, hey, those guys are doing fucking important stuff, they need support. Because this is definitely something Catalyst Circle should, because when there's no decision-making process, it's a human sensor array, that it needs also that when people are there and they say, yeah, errors, yeah, big errors we are working on, then Catalyst Circle wouldn't have any functionality if they are not even able to support projects like this. To say, yeah, make your proposal, do your stuff.
I mean, from the top of my head, I can't think of anything right now that would be super essential, but it would be good to have like a fast track lane to IOHK, to maybe green light small budgets or something for these cases, so that we don't have to wait a week for to green light a €30 budget or something.
That's the thing why we made the rapid funding challenge, rapid funding mechanism.
Not just rely on funding, or just if we have a question or if we need some input from IOHK, that we don't have to wait a week or something, that we can get a fast response within, I don't know, 24 hours or 12 hours or something. That would be good, I guess, for the beginning. Or if we say we need support, like basically what you said, that we have a on-demand support line, like a red telephone, basically. Kind of.
Yes.
I mean, clearly IOG are becoming a little bit more proactive, and they're recruiting. I think, George, they've recruited a last cohort meeting, didn't they announce they recruited 2 more people to support the reporting team there, I think. And we need to know, I know they've just joined, but we'd like to, meet them and to basically interact with them, not just funded cohort either, as Dan was saying, I think, where it's people who are providing community services, for a while, like George, myself, other documentation, other landing pages, other projects like that. Those people need support from these new people in IOG, as now that the focus is turned much more onto governance.
I mean, couldn't that then also be something that is being communicated via the Catalyst Circle, that they say, okay, the new people, it's actually, when you think about it, it's a bit funny that the community demands that the new people that are onboarded to IOG or IOHK should be also connected with the community in order to function properly. But actually, exactly. I mean, isn't that what it's all about? And what also DAO, I think, said, that IOHK somehow works for the community, right?
And their goal is to move away from key holder to service provider for the community. Yeah. This is one of their problem statements they brought on the table. So just with this initiative, what is coming here together, you guys are taking a little bit, just by what you are doing already, and in the environment, this collaboration is moving now. You take a little bit of, a shitload of different topics and parts. What is also kind of dangerous, because it can lead very fast to spread yourself too thin over too many topics. I think focus is extremely important, but all of you guys, you are extremely focused, so just need to go on. But yeah, Jacob, you're definitely right.
And what you said with the rushing part, that reminded me of one thought that I had. So I think it's important kind of that we don't establish this thing where through just our personal connections, we kind of push topics through or something like that. I mean, maybe that's not our job per se, but also like thinking about the function of the Catalyst Circle, right? That there's that channels are established that not only privileged people can use, but that are open also to wider parts, so that it's not like at the end, okay, so these guys approach the Catalyst Circle and they are kind of their own lobbying group or whatever, right, to push their own projects and interests, etc. But that it's important to think about how this whole process can be still kept open, and also that it's communicated to the wider community, that it's everybody knows, okay, this is going on and they are opening the gates and these are first steps, and it's not about excluding the others as a direction. I think that's important.
Yeah, and there also needs to be there needs to be a practical demonstration of that as well. Like, for example, let's say if this fits into the onboarding problem, okay, and you say, how can we onboard new people? And what that also means, given new people, not necessarily new people, but people who don't have the connections that we have, there's the opportunities that we have, so there's a process by which they can gain reputation, and all their competence can be recognized for what it is, and then that's presented to Circle, and that may be then presented at Town Hall, for example. So some sort of, I don't know, that terrible word, pipeline, or reputational pipeline, I suppose. Sorry, George, I interrupted you. But.
No. We're exactly the same time. Great minds think alike. My thoughts were with the thing I was suggesting with how we change. Let's say I'm making, thinking of a process just in the short term to change Catalyst. The kind of key thing to prevent anything bad happening is to make sure the scope of what that thing does, so that process is just kept to minimum. So like, that process is literally just for changing some part of the Catalyst ecosystem. So it's like quite fine. It's quite a fairly ish small box. It shouldn't really kind of lapse out to other things. That's probably the best way to keep it kind of like more like, you're not going to get random people coming in with like, do this, and the Catalyst circle gets loaded with pressure on these random things. I think if you keep it simple just to the Catalyst stuff in first instantiation, then that keeps that kind of a safe box. Only the people who give a shit about Catalyst and making the right changes, who always spent time in Catalyst, are going to make proposals like, some sort of change for that. And then when we're moving into this kind of credentials and reputation kind of side, and we have a better grasp on it, suddenly we have like the system where, a better system where we kind of have a way to determine people who are more suitable for being part of a bigger decision, bigger things. Maybe it's something, much more to do with funding here, funding there, or like access to funds, this rapid funding. Maybe there's, an integration there, things that are could be much more controversial because there's money involved, that kind of thing. We can do that at a later stage with these kind of like thought processes and, governance kind of things, because we've kind of thought about the reputation side and laid it up gradually over time to, increase the exposure, but also we've got the right tooling to fit the needs for the job. So that'd be that. That's just some canning off some thoughts on that.
Yeah, I was going to say that also feeds into as we scale, and we recently had this kind of rush for CA expertise, the verification of the capability to assess specialized cases when we go forward. Because when we get to the point where we're going to Fund 7 and Fund 8, when we get a lot of proposals in, and we're getting proposals in industries that require specialist knowledge of industries. For example, I assessed one of the solar energy industry, for example. Okay, yes, it had an NFT business model, which I could comment on, but I didn't know so much about the solar industry. And we could get to a point very quickly where we need people and we need to verify that expertise through something like George's system, which then can help. That helps another problem, actually. That helps the problem of assess proposals, CA competency, that kind of thing, scalability of all that.
Yeah, I was just thinking, onboarding, reputation, and rewards, they are separate, somehow separate, but they do work and come together quite often. And as we think about these building blocks within these specific areas, we should also think about how do we build the interfaces. So how do we build these like transitions from when does onboarding gathers reputation, when is rewards, or when is reputation exchanged into rewards, and so on and so forth. So it's just not just creating these blocks, but also think about how they work together. And that's probably like one team that we need to form once we have the basic research and documentation and piloting done.
Definitely 100% agree, because none of these points, I think you totally nailed it. None of these problems exist in a vacuum. No, they are kind of separate, but not really, because they come so fast together, especially when you look in the future, that you can't really separate one of them out of the two of the others. So, and this was for me the reason why I thought, wow, this could, what you're doing, what your guys are doing, could fit so well together, because you work on these different sides already. And mostly it's not about building new projects. It's just about the context and the environment in which these projects work together. So the empty space between the projects just has to be coordinated. There doesn't need to come again a new big project. The big project is just to link what is there already.
Yeah, agree.
Yeah, I think there's the collaboration point that's going to become much more of importance. I think is as soon as we get a bit closer to this credential stuff and bringing all that kind of thing together. And there's at that time, I think there's going to be a massive things we can do together. And then what we do in the short term with these two different governance things, let's say I'm doing this process for changing Catalyst, that can have feedback from anyone else because it's all kind of relevant to us. But then there's also what you're doing with the Discord stuff for SecretDecks. I think we can just share ideas and learn from a lot of stuff here. And that's just kind of collaboration with learning. And then we're taking that to this learning into what actually could be a proper solution with Atala Prism and the next level kind of stuff. That's where we can find these building blocks where it's like, these are just kind of like temporary solutions at work. We learn from them. We share the, collaboration on this, understanding everything, but then we bring forward what's actually, needed for both of us here, what can be shared, what's the kind of commonalities. So I see that's at the moment, that being the kind of progression of this, of what's going on in this meeting, at least.
Ciao, Aiden. Have a lovely weekend. And also to the other people here in the room, Kelly, Robert, AWG, Gao. Feel free to also to add your two loveless.
Yeah, thank you, everyone. Have an awesome weekend. Looking forward to all these ideas coming to fruition and, testing some out. So have a good one.
Thanks, everybody. Have a great weekend.
Thanks, you too, Robert.
See ya.
See you around.
Bye-bye.
Yeah, Stephen, maybe we do a GitHub dashboard for our efforts, right? Link all the issues that we're working on around this. And we could also use it to signal for meetings. So for example, when we have topics to discuss, we put them on the list. And if there are 3 topics, then okay, it's time for a meeting because we have 3 topics that we can talk about. And
whenever there's an excuse to set up a GitHub repository, I'm for it.
You can use the Swarm repository, right?
Well, no, because everything can't be Swarm, can it? We have to break away from Swarm, maybe. I'm not sure.
Yes. This initiative here should be totally independent from Swarm.
Okay.
I think. For sure, all support what you care, what you need, what you have, what you want, everything. But that there has been a reason also why we didn't link the school and the Eastern Town Hall so much to Swarm. So much more that it wouldn't be wise to create a monster and everything is Swarm. No. don't do this.
I mean, does Pace have a repo, George, or would you want to...
for what? I mean, it's got multiple, but it's better to mean something specific.
Yeah, I think for what we're calling this now.
Sea Society. I love Sea Society. This is fucking fancy.
Well, it's easy to
Society. It sounds royal.
It'd be easy to set up a GitHub organization. And we could, as Dan says, we could set up a coordination repo where we can raise issues, hold discussion forums, that kind of stuff, documentation.
I mean, can we just link our existing issues into that repo?
Yeah.
Oh, is it possible? Yeah, right.
Well, you can, yeah.
Or do we have to raise new issues then referencing those?
Well, you can reference a GitHub issue from any other repository.
Okay.
Yeah. I'm not sure whether we need a group title kind of thing to this, just because the differences between what I'm doing on onboarding, the reputation, and each of the different things. There's actually quite a lot of difference kind of thing. When what I'm doing on onboarding the GitBook stuff doesn't really map over to what they're doing with SecretDecks. So it's I wouldn't need to have a GitBook that shares the conversations that necessarily. It'd be good to have feedback on this little governance process I'm doing, because that maybe relates to their Discord thing and there's similarities there. But to have it'd be just good to obviously we just have after town hall diary talking about something is relevant to you guys. I think towards the Atala Prism stuff, there's lots of collaboration there, but that's really just to Atala Prism. How we label it.
What I'd recommend for people who have GitHub organizations is to set up, I don't know if you do this, George, but if you've got, set aside one of the repos in one of your organizations to be like a coordination repo where someone from SecretDecks or I can come along and I can make a comment on what you're doing. Okay. or I can have a discussion, or you open up discussion forums or something, or I can raise issues, something, to basically communicate that as well to other people in the community. So I can go along to your project, George, or I can go along to SecretDecks or QA-DAO as well. And we can say, well, I think this about what you're doing, or I can help you here, that kind of thing.
I mean, for now, we can also use the Discord because it's there. Actually, it's 3 channels. Yeah, we can update us there, and if we see that there's a lot of updates happening and a lot of noise happening, then we can start setting up a GitHub and a dashboard.
Yeah, my thoughts on that is, what if Pace became more complex, and let's say there's 3 partners and there's 6 of us in the team or whatever. Then at the moment there's this, we haven't used Notion. I would set up a Pace, how Pace is managed, basically this coordination thing that covers like how we do things, whether it's like budgeting, how we assess, how we do all these kind of things, like assessing skill value, how we do these, all those kind of factors, and that'll be public. So at the time where that complexity gets to a state where it's justified, and we're going to need that. It's simple with me and Jacob at the moment, and how I'm working with Darlington, simple enough that we don't probably need it. But that I would do like an open source GitBook that maintains all of that, and you could then make an issue into it. But for now, I would say just smash me a message on Discord or in the Project Catalyst Discord chat, because it's kind of a by the by situation where it's kind of probably a bit less frequent. And that's a wrap.
Yeah, for me, it's just I more often check my GitHub than my Discord. Usually, when I'm in Discord, I check the SecretDecks, and I have to say I don't check the Catalyst and Swarm Discords too often, but I will do it more often now.
Get out of here! Get out!
There is something
this guy, put him in.
There is something here about open source culture, because I think that Phil K made me a member of the repository for the landing page recently, and it's about being open to each other as well, to a certain extent. Like, so if we identify something we're doing in our repos, I mean everyone here actually, is to try and to give credit to Phil K and the landing page. They're trying to do that. They're trying to put GitHub issues out there for people to work on, which is a really, how well it works is another matter, because there may be problems with the bounty system and everything that they're developing. But it's a really good initiative in terms of open source culture, because I hear what you're saying, George, and you have a tightly knit group, but also you're not an island, there's even at this stage, and so it's about that transparency and visibility there of what you're doing as well. So, and I say that, you can get a view into what SecretDecks are doing as well if you look at their repos and their issues as well. So, but I suppose we should all think about this, maybe, and then that's a wrap.
All right.
I thought this might be a good time to end it. Yeah. What it's been.
Yeah. Quite a meeting, gentlemen. Wow.
Yes. Really nice.
Smashed it. I'm going out and getting drunk.
Let's do this again sometime.
If there's anyone coming to the summit next weekend in London, you'll be seeing these hands fast and furious.
George, nobody goes to England. They will never lead us.
I've got a custom shirt.
Then stay yourself on your wet fish stinky island.
Coming from the Caribbean in Europe. No, anyone's going to Berlin? Jacob, you're going to Berlin?
Actually, I didn't schedule it. I wanted to talk to, Felix, we talked beforehand about it. I wrote again to David. He didn't respond, so I don't know. And then I didn't book it for Berlin, so I'm now in between the lines, but yeah.
London. It's closer.
Looking for flights right now.
I'm gonna be in
Pay Steam going in as a doer.
I'm gonna be in the Vietnamese virtual one.
Are you doing a live view?
I'm a speaker there. They invite. Yeah. No. No idea what will happen there.
Okay.
And
yeah.
Today they dropped a fancy video from something looks like a video game or whatnot, something like this, virtual.
Yeah, it looked nice.
It looked very meta cute.
Meta cute, that's a nice word. You're such a meta cute guy.
Hey guys, I'm gonna roll.
Yes.
It's been a great pleasure talking to you, and enjoy your evening or your day. Definitely. And see you soon. Yep. Bye.
Thanks a lot to everyone.
Bye-bye.
Yeah. See you guys. Thank you.
It's time. Much love, everyone.
Yep.
See ya.
Mach die Fliege.
Mach die Fliege. Nee, that's not gentle to say this.
I'm kidding.
But real nice one. And also a lead donation. Feel free also to reach out to them as you propose your support for the project. I can assure you all of these guys are extremely lovely, and
I mean, we are already in the talks with you, right? And so it's a good starting point.
Or against NFT DAO.
Yes. NFT DAO.
What's the story? I missed that inside joke. What's the story behind that?
Whoa, this is a long story. And don't fuck my day for today. I don't want to waste my evening for speaking about NFT DAO.
All right, never mind.
But once I will take waste some time to explain you what NFT DAO is about. So at least it's a whole cheating project on Catalyst, and they only cheat, and yeah, not nice. But anyway, check. And the PCA workshop is still going on. But I will also say goodnight